Hello everyone, Anita here and welcome to another art chat. This week's topic has been asked of me for a while by a few people, but the one who actually persuaded me was Anny D. And we are going to talk about some tips and tricks about perspective and building up space. Technically, the topic I was supposed to talk about was just perspective, but I don't feel that I use that much of it, and I actually don't feel that I am qualified enough to actually talk about it. So I'm just going to show you a few examples of kind of how I use and build up space and depth in my paintings, and you will just take out of it what you want and use it however you will. So this first painting is, some of you probably know it. I drew it for the 52 Weeks Challenge in 2014, and it's just a painting of a house. As you can see, it's a perfectly 2D house. There's no perspective in it at all, except maybe for the stairs here, but I wouldn't call it perspective either. And that's how I usually paint everything. That's why I can't really talk about perspective, but I use this trick here a lot, where whenever I want to present some objects in that there's a distance between them, I would do it with color and size, and some other stuff that I'm going to show you in a little bit, but mostly color and size. So of course, let's say this is our horizon. The closer the things are to us, they will be more vibrant and bigger. And then the further away they go and the closer they go to get to the horizon, the smaller and paler they will become. I usually fade everything into blue unless I paint in a different color, but most of the time I just fade everything, every color I fade it into blue. So that's how we have like this red field in the foreground, then we have a pink one, a purple one, and blue one. So yeah, of course, after that, I want to bring in the focal point of this painting is actually the house, so it will be vibrant. But if I was actually using something in the foreground, a character, anything, even if the house was this big, it would probably be more blue than colorful like here. And just because I really wanted to put a pressure on this house, that's why it's the colors are more vibrant. But if this was not the main subject of this painting, it would definitely be more blue, just because that's how I paint. And here's a very good example, another one, and very similar to the previous one. That's why I thought it was very, very, very good to follow up with. In this one here, we are going to talk about this piece over here. These are wheat fields. As you can see, they start very bright yellow, and they come in those sections. And the further you go towards the horizon, the sections become smaller and more blue until they disappear completely in the white horizon, and then the blue sky comes from the very, very this is not really white, this is very light blue, and it goes towards the more saturated blue on top. I really, really like this effect. I use it in a lot of paintings, and you probably will see it more often. This is another example of how it's very similar again. We have those circle shapes too. In this case, they are hot air balloons. And as you can see, the one that is most in the foreground has the most color. It's the most vibrant one and the biggest one. So the further away we go, the less vibrant they are, and the smaller they become. The same with the giant beanstalks. As you can see, the one over here is very vibrant, and this one's a bit smaller and less vibrant, and then the ones in the background are completely blue. So the character here is, you can't even see much detail, except that he has a top hat and the goggles. As I said, I don't always use blue. It all depends on your background color. In this case, I wanted to use a warmer color for the background. So it's also not a rule, because in a lot of paintings I might change the colors completely. So for example, I might start with a different color background and then just fade the different colored trees into that background. So for example, in this case, I would just keep adding the different color. If those trees were, let's say, I don't know, purple, I would be adding the background color to that purple and kind of slowly fading the colors into the background, if that makes sense. But in this particular case, I've used this very sharp black gouache, and isn't black gouache absolutely amazing? I mean, look how you can kind of like dive into it, and it would probably, it looks so black. You can get lost in that black. But so the foreground trees are something that is the closest to the viewer, and in this case I painted them black because that I was the face like that, and I really liked black trees in the foreground. And when I think about painting, I think more like in layers. So like you have one layer and a second layer, and there's like nothing in between, or at least not much. So the first layer for me, as you can see, are the black trees, and the second layer are the characters in the middle, which are the focal point of this painting. So they are very vibrant. You know, I want to drag the eye towards these characters. That's why there are not much details on the trees themselves. And then there is another layer in the background, which are the different trees. And as you can see, they kind of fade. We start with a little bit of a, what is that even? Like a brownish, orangish, beigeish color. And we start with a very bright one. And it fades. As the further we go, the more faded it becomes. And most of the time I will paint in those layers. So for example, here, these two trees are on one layer, there's one more here behind. And then there will be another layer with these trees. So I kind of like, if you think about this whole painting in slides, I think it's the best way to think of how I paint. I just put different slides next to each other. Closest I go when I draw perspective is, I think this recent picture is showing it perfectly. I will only do it in pictures like this one, when I have characters, and to ground them I'm using this road, the pavement. So in this case I consciously, literally I was actually thinking about it, and I put a point and I drew lines. I made it sure so that it looked like real pavement, because when I'm drawing natural shapes like rocks and that's pretty much it. You don't really need those lines, but for things like pavement, which are more geometrical, you will need guidelines, or otherwise it will just look a little bit wonky. And I wanted this to be nice. I wanted to be nice and straight. And the same thing is that the further towards, like the closer it is to the viewer, the bigger it is. So the tiles here in the front are bigger, and the further away they go, they become smaller. So that's pretty much it. That's how I do perspective. There's nothing else to it. When I was talking about rocks, this was the painting it kind of shows what I mean. I think because when I draw any kind of rocks or any kind of ground, the only thing I really pay attention to is that the rocks are bigger in the front and they're smaller in the back, and the further away they go, they are becoming flatter. If you look at any kind of picture, and if you're trying to draw any kind of perspective actually, or any kind of landscape, any kind of space, just look at reference. I always look at reference, and these are just some kind of like tips and my own observations. That the items are always, when you draw them in space, they won't be round. Even if this stone is round, it will not appear like this in your painting, because you are looking from a certain angle. and on a certain angle everything becomes flat. So the further away it goes, it becomes smaller and flatter because you see only tiny little sliver of the whole rock. And of course, the further away it goes, it becomes smaller as well. So that's the only thing I will do. I just pay attention to that, to make the objects in front bigger, and the further away I go, they become smaller. These are, as you can see, this whole scooter is not, I didn't draw this scooter in perspective either. I don't really think about perspective at all. I just want to present an object. It doesn't concern me if it's in perfect perspective or if it's in any perspective. I just want it to look like it's in some kind of space and that it's grounded somehow, and that's enough for me. Now, much more than perspective, I kind of like drawing my pictures in kind of like isometric settings. If you don't know what isometric is, well, I'm not gonna explain it to you because I don't know the specifics. Just something that I picked up by playing video games for a very long time. It's something that's aesthetically pleasing to me, and the most basic way of describing is that you are drawing on a diamond-shaped grid. So as you can see, this here is a diamond. Everything is in a diamond shape, so everything is based on the same line. So instead of having horizontal lines and vertical lines, the whole grid is crooked into a diamond shape. And for me, this is really aesthetically pleasing. I love that kind of style. That's why I draw in that kind of style the most, and that is probably why I don't really bother myself with perspective. So if I tackle this kind of painting when I need to have a certain space, because I usually deal with paintings or with ideas that are very natural, I draw a lot of woods, I draw a lot of plants, animals, things that or creatures that are in the woods, in the nature, organic. So I don't really get to paint rooms that often. And so in this case, when I have to, I start always with the room itself. So I will kind of create my own grid. So as you can see, here is a corner of my room, and this is my actual room. This is our corner of our living room. And so I've created that corner. And then I'm drawing this in a way that starts with things that don't move. So I will start with kind of like... I make things fit in that room, and I think from like the angle of I will start with things that don't move first. And for example, here I have a chair. Now the chair is not molding to me, right? I will mold around the chair. So I drew the chair first, and then I put myself in that chair. And the same thing here, I drew the windowsill first because that will never move, it will always be here. And then I can kind of, move the chair around how I want it, because, it's easy to just move it. So I really think about it very logistically, very, like realistically as well. Like, how would I do it in real life? So as you can see here on the armchair, I drew myself, and then on top of myself, I drew a blanket because, of course, the blanket won't be there first. First, I will sit on the chair before I put the blanket over me. So yeah, it's a little bit of a weird way of thinking, but and then after I have those big elements set in, that's when I'm going to draw the little guys in. So yeah, that's pretty much it that I have to talk about when it comes to I don't really, the word perspective doesn't really fit this. It's more like, it's just the little kind of tricks, I suppose. These are the little tricks that I use to build up space, and I don't really think about it. I just want to present some kind of situation, and I don't really think about it to be, I don't really need it to be very correct from a perspective. Like, for me, perspective is very architectural, I suppose, very specific, realistic. And I'm not a realistic painter. I don't paint realistic stuff, so I don't really have a need for the perspective. So I use only little bits of it, only the bits that are useful for me. And that's when I will feel the need to learn a little bit more, or to like accommodate more of the rules of perspective into my paintings, and I will tackle that at that time. But for now, those little tips are enough for me. So I hope this answered some of your questions. Maybe it inspired you to do something. I really don't know. You wanted to hear it, I did it. It was fun to talk about, and especially I really didn't see this painting for such a long time. It's crazy. So thank you so much for watching. Please hit that like button if you like this video. It helps me a lot. And maybe subscribe if you are not subscribed yet and you would like to see more of my videos. And also, if you have ideas for future videos and you would like to hear me talk about something, just leave me a comment below and I will definitely add it to my list. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video. Bye!